Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to General Insurance Corporation of India Q4 FY21 earnings conference call. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then 0 on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I would now like to hand the conference over to Mr. Binay Sarda from Christensen Advisory. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Thanks, Janice. Good evening to all the participants on the call, and thanks for joining this Q4 FY 2021 earnings call for General Insurance Corporation of India. Please note that we have mailed out the press release to everyone, and you can also see the results on our website. As well, it has been uploaded on the stock exchange. In case if you have not received the same, you can write to us and we'll be happy to send it over to you. Before we proceed with the call, let me remind you that the discussion may contain forward-looking statements that may involve known or unknown risks, uncertainties, and other factors. It must be viewed in conjunction with our businesses that cause future result, performance, or achievement to differ significantly from what is expressed or implied by such forward-looking statements. To take us through the results of this quarter and answer our questions, we have with us the management of GIC represented by Mr. Devesh Srivastava, Chairman and Managing Director, and other top members of the management. We'll be starting the call with a brief overview of the quarter gone past, which will then be followed with a Q&A session. With that said, I'll now hand over the call to Mr. Devesh Srivastava. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Binayji. Good afternoon, everyone. I am pleased to announce the financial performance for the quarter and full year ended 31st March 2021. Before I take you, though, through the key operating financial highlights for the year, I hope that all of you are safe and have been taking adequate precautions to protect yourself and your family from the second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. Though our gross premium was impacted due to the pandemic, our performance at the underwriting level improved significantly due to our relentless focus in putting necessary measures in place to bring down the incurred claims ratio. It is heartening to note that the combined ratio is showing a positive trend despite the challenging environment. Let me now take you through some of the key highlights of the financial performance. The gross premium income of the company was rupees 47,014 crores for financial year 21 as compared to rupees 51,030 crores for financial year 20. The investment income increased by 24% to rupees 8,820 crores in FY21 as compared to rupees 7,125 crores in the previous year. Incurred claims ratio declined to 92.4% in FY21 as compared to 97.5% in FY20. Combined ratio in FY21 improved to 112.03% versus 114.38% for FY20. The adjusted combined ratio, by taking into consideration the policyholder's investment income, works out to 95.85% for FY21 as compared to 102.47% in FY20. The company recorded profit before tax of rupees 3,163 crores in FY21 as against a loss before tax of rupees 445 crores in FY20 and profit after tax of rupees 1,920 crores in FY21 against net loss of rupees 359 crores in FY20 on account of better performance at the underwriting level and increase in investment income. Solvency ratio improved to 1.74 as on 31st March 2021 compared to 1.53 as on 31st December 2020. Net worth of the company without fair value change account increased to rupees 22,452 crores as on 31/03/2021 as against 20,529 crores as on 31/03/2020. Net worth of the company, including fair value change account, increased to rupees 49,643 crores on 31st March 21 as compared to rupees 35,425 crores as on 31st March 2020. On the premium breakup, domestic premium for FY21 is 30,009 crores and the international is rupees 17,004 crores. The percentage split is domestic 63.8% and international 36.2%. So there is a degrowth in the domestic premium by around 17.2%, while the international book has grown by 14.9%. We will continue to work towards bringing down the combined ratio and improve our performance at the underwriting level. We are confident of improved performance going forward and remain optimistic on future prospects. Having given the highlights, we will now open the floor for questions from the interested parties. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and one on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and two. Participants are requested to use handset while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. The first question is from the line of Prithvesh Uppal from IDBI Capital. Please go ahead.
So thank you for the opportunity. My question is regarding your portfolio of health and life. So what we observed during the quarter is that the claims and subsequently the underwriting in these two segments are the losses are quite high. So given the second wave impact, if you can just give some bit of color in terms of how do you see these segments shaping up. Secondly, we've done really well in the aviation segment, and we've reported underwriting profits also in the motor segment. So I would believe that this would also be a factor on the fact that there have been lockdowns and less traffic on the road. So how sustainable do you think the underwriting these segments is going to be, the underwriting profit in the segment is going to be going forward? And thirdly, if you can just give some amount of color in terms of how we're looking at our underwriting from a risk selection point of view, because we've really done well so far in this quarter. So what has led to this improvement in terms of risk selection that's led to a lower claims ratio? So that's it from my side.
All right. For health and life, Suchita ma'am, may I ask you to come in, please?
Pardon?
No, I'm asking my colleague, Mrs. Suchita Gupta, who is heading the health and life vertical, to come in. Oops, I don't see her. Well, to answer your question about health and life, obviously under the COVID regime, so to say, you know that both health and life have been a challenging sector. Now, health as such is more of a retail product, doesn't require much of reinsurance. So our book of health is largely based on the obligatory sessions that we get from the domestic market. In that health, so we have seen some claims coming in because of COVID, but in the same breath, I would hasten to add that due to the fact that many of the planned hospitalizations that would have normally taken place had COVID not been there were pushed. So it was an offsetting factor. But the more important bit for us is that thanks to the fear of COVID in everyone's mind, lots of people started looking at health insurance as a purchase, which broadens the base. Also the fact that more of retail health picked up, which is a very heartening factor for us. And that helped us. I mean, the growth in health was flat, so to say, despite the fact that people are not renewing very vigorously, but a flat growth for us in the reinsurance space, coupled with the fact that we have, because of COVID, done some very prudent reserving as well. That reserving is something that any reinsurer would be doing because that is what is sanity. And you know that COVID is still not over, so you provide for the worst, and that is why our health portfolio is where it stands today. On the life sector, again, though, I mean, if you see it in its entirety, life is just about 2.5% of our entire portfolio, but it has registered a good growth. 30% obviously because the base is small, but that is a sector that we are looking to grow, especially because it acts as a very good balancing force for our non-life book. We are growing that as well. The prices are challenging because there are the players, the FRBs and GIC are all there in this space, looking at a very small slice of the life reinsurance market, but we are still a dominant player in this sector. You also spoke about aviation motor. Yes, aviation has been having a lot of downside in the earlier years, but thanks to the shrinking of capacity globally, aviation sector has seen an upswing in the premium rates, which has helped us a great deal. Also that in COVID, when there were not too many planes flying and there was not much of an air traffic, that has also helped us for our claim ratio stabilizing. But the major factor still was the fact that the premiums have seen a huge upswing in the aviation sector. Motor similarly is again something that doesn't require much of reinsurance, and much like health, a large part of our book is the obligatory cessions that we get from the market. But again, thanks to COVID, there were not too many motor cars flying. Also the fact that the automobile sector is in itself at a bit of a stretch, especially more so in the initial COVID period. So there was, though a downswing in the premiums, but the claims also didn't see much of a movement there. So the aviation and the motor sector have both done well for us. Coming to the last bit where you mentioned about underwriting and risk selection, well, that is the basic tenet of reinsurance, that you should be extremely prudent in selecting a risk. Exactly what we are doing now, and that is what is being reflected in our figures. The basic thrust for long-term sustainability is still your thrust on having very good risk selection, coupled with all the underwriting discipline that you can muster and get onto your book, because that is your sustainable model. Your investment income can at best only add to whatever you make from your operating profit. And that is the journey that we have undertaken for ourselves. And our figures redeem our faith in the strategies that we have set for ourselves being the right one.
Okay. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Vipul Shah from Sumangal Investment. Please go ahead.
Hello.
Yes, sir. You may please go ahead, Mr. Vipul Shah, with your question.
Hi, sir. So pardon me for my ignorance about your business, but I just want to know how the profits are distributed between policyholders and shareholders, because I see two type of results in your result presentation. So is there any formula for dividing the profit to the respective shareholders and these policyholders? Can you elaborate, please?
Yes, surely. We have Mrs. Jayashree Ranade. Ma'am, can I request you to come in here, please?
Hello.
Yes, go ahead. Hello.
Ma'am, you may please go ahead.
We could hear you then, ma'am.
Ms. Jayashree Ranade, you may please go ahead, ma'am. So just allow me a minute. I'll just reconnect, ma'am, as we can't hear her. Ma'am, you're reconnected. You may please go ahead.
Yeah. Hello. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So policyholders' funds and shareholders' funds are defined as policyholders' funds constitute our unexpired risk reserve, outstanding loss reserve, and premium deficiency reserve. So that's the total of it. Similarly, shareholders' reserve or funds are called your capital plus free reserve. So now we have total reserves split into two. Now, all our investment income and all our reserves. So, investment income is divided into this. These are called policyholders' funds. And the other one which I told you, shareholders' funds, are, so total funds are bifurcated into these two things. So, policyholders' funds basically constitute the reserves of the insurance policy related or the insurance policy related funds. Now, various bifurcations are done based on these policyholders funds and shareholders funds. So, I think, am I a little bit, should I elaborate further or is it okay?
No, what I want to understand is out of the net profit, is there any formula based on which the certain percentage would go automatically to shareholders funds and certain percentage would go to policyholders funds?
Sir, our net profit is constituting part of our what you call is as there is a profit and loss account, and also there are other accounts, motor, fire, marine, and miscellaneous accounts. Right, sir? So, so all our insurance-related components are part of our revenue account. Fire revenue account, marine revenue account, and miscellaneous revenue account. Now, these accounts, if you see, premium, commission, claims are recorded under various categories into this revenue account. Whereas investment income is divided into policyholders, that is the revenue account, and shareholders, that is your profit and loss account, into the proportion of policyholders funds and shareholders funds. So this is the only investment income and the expenses, investment related expenses are divided. The rest, all insurance related are gathered into the revenue account. The balance is transferred into profit and loss account, and finally the net profit is arrived at. So to say, yes, you're right in a way that investment income of the corporation is divided into policyholders funds and shareholders funds, and finally worked out as a net profit, which we have worked out as 3,000 odd figure, and finally net profit before the tax is 1,920, which all belongs to shareholders.
Okay, ma'am. Still, I'm not. Means, can I take this offline with you?
Sure. Certainly, sir. Certainly.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you. Reminder to the participants, if you wish to ask a question, please press star then 1 on your touchtone telephone. The next question is from the line of Sanket Godha from Spark Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. I have two data keeping questions with respect to the financials. One is why our tax rate has been very high in the current fiscal and even for the quarter. Just wanted to understand why is it so, and what we can expect it going ahead. So that's the first question. And second question which I had was with respect to data keeping was we have a write back of 424 crores in the quarter, in the fourth quarter. So just wanted to understand what is it with respect to. It is with respect to reinsurance or something with respect to investments which has come back to us and therefore we have returned back the provisions.
Jayashree ma'am, can you take that also, please?
Yes, please. So provision for taxation, the tax rate for this year is calculated based on the income tax laws applicable to us. In the earlier years, we used to have an exemption called for profit on sale of long-term investments, that is under section 1034, which used to get exempt. now, since last year, 1920 onwards, the tax rate, since last year there was a loss, so there was not much of an issue in that. In the sense, tax calculation was different. So in the current year, since there is a profit, now an entire applicable rate of 30% plus will be applicable to us, because Section 44 says that taxable income to be considered as noted in the profit and loss account. That is why the increase in the tax rate. About the...
But sir, ma'am, just to continue on this, we had some MAT benefits and all those things. So ultimately, our tax rate should have been lower than 30 odd, and it is almost 39% for the full year and 38% for the quarter. So still it remains very high compared to usual standards, even if you have not moved to 25% new tax rate regime.
You are right. But the basic reason for increase is that exemption which has gone. 1038 is gone for us. Now, all the other things I will tell you here. Certain provisions which we make, like provision for doubtful investments, doubtful loans, are added back into, as per regulations. We cannot, as per tax laws, we cannot get those exemptions. So that has to be added back. So if you add back, that actual taxable profit becomes quite high, and that's why 39% is booked up. Yes.
Got it, ma'am. And can you explain that write back of 424 crores provisions?
Yes, this is an exercise which is carried out this year to reconcile the balances pending into our books. Reinsurance balances are consistently and continuously flowing to and fro from ceding company to reinsurer, from reinsurer to us, like, inward and outward and things like that. So there was a reconciliation exercise which was carried out, and based on various advices and various, we could finalize the reconciliations up to a particular period. Let's say it is up to 31st March 18. So we could get a confirmation from the parties and things like that. And in this process, there was a write back which was put into the P&L.
Okay. But the number is very high, so just wondering. Yes. Ma'am, anything we have provided with respect to the unprovided book, which those small number, did we provide anything with respect to Reliance and all those things, or we did not do any incremental provisionings there?
I'll request the parties have to come in there, please.
Sure, sir, sure. Sanket, good evening.
Yeah, sir.
As you would have seen from our books, we have completely provided for the Reliance Capital and Reliance Home Finance as on 31st March 2021.
Okay.
So the fully provided, all the stress assets have been fully provided by us as on 31st March. We don't have any further such provision to be made.
Got it, sir. Sir, can you break down your investment income into interest income, dividend income, and capital gains for full year and for the quarter, sir, if possible?
Request Jayashree Madam to look into this.
Yeah. Sanketji, I can give you full year income breakup as you require. Yeah. Our equity dividend is approximately 748.5 crores. Okay. Then our profit on sale of investments is approximately 4,166 crores. Okay. And overall is 8,444 crores. Indian domestic. Okay. Of which the balance too, if you remove, all interest income. And in fact, the rest is also interest income pertaining to our foreign business. Yeah.
Okay, got it, ma'am. So you said totaling. Okay, fine. Okay, ma'am. Sir, I have a couple of questions with respect to business. One is that we have been hearing that a few states are not comfortable with the crop scheme now. Especially we have heard about Maharashtra. there is a possibility that crop size will further shrink in FY22 because few states might not use PMFBY as a way of ensuring their farmers in that respective states. So just wanted to understand the size, how you see this crop business to play out. And second thing, with crop, any tweaking which has further happened compared to, we have tightened it a lot last year. Any further tightening or relaxation has been offered to the primary companies with respect to crop insurance, sir?
Saket, again I'll request Tripathi Saab to come in.
Sure, sir. Sanket, as far as PMFBY is concerned, we don't see any shrinkage in premium this year.
Okay.
Excepting MP, West Bengal, almost all other states have indicated that they will be at least following PMFBY this year. And MP and Bengal also have the crop insurance scheme, but in a different structure of the PMFBY. It is not strictly PMFBY. So we are not seeing on a countrywide basis, we will not see a reduction in overall crop insurance premium. Now it is our choice whether we want to write all the crop insurance or we want to write only PMFBY. Okay. Now since PMFBY remains a cabinet approved scheme, we continue to support that. We have not looked into other subsets of PMFBY which are being looked into by other states. Okay. Now, regarding tweaking, we haven't done any further tweaking to what we had done last year because the scheme is on for 3 years. And we had, in our treaty terms, we had made it clear to all companies that based on the performance of the first year, we will look into the terms and conditions in the subsequent year. Yeah. So as luck would have it, the year has been very good. And most of the companies have almost reported a loss ratio around much below 80%. So there is no immediate cause for concern or for any tweaking of the existing terms and conditions.
Got it, sir. Perfect. Sir, another couple of questions on the business is that we lost out around 700 crores of business last year in Jan renewals because of our rating downgrade. So in June renewals, have we experienced in international market the same phenomena? And then second thing which I wanted to check was that, sir, in renewal business, in June renewals, what kind of price hardening you have witnessed with respect to overseas business?
Hitesh bhai, can I request you please?
Mr. Hitesh Joshi, your line is unmuted. Please unmute yourself. Mr. Hitesh Joshi, your line is unmuted. Please unmute it from your end.
Hello, yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, so Sanket, the thing is essentially international property renewal season is heavily concentrated for January. And we had talked about this January renewal during the last call because by that time the renewal season was over. Just to revisit that thing, whatever happened during the January renewal, every geography and within that geography, different kinds of accounts given the particular loss history and changes in exposure will exhibit different behavior. But a very broad brush picture of the essentially Western market, particularly US, we can say that if it is an account which has not had significant recoveries on the expiring year, it would have something like single-digit hardening. And if there is a recovery under the program, it can have a rate hardening of something like 10 to 25%. Apart from this, there was a significant hardening in Japan. And Europe also saw hardening. There was a global hardening across COBs, across classes of business, across segments. And this hardening varied depending on the client profile, the geography, the exposure changes, and the underwriter's perception. Does it help, Sanket?
Okay, sir. But in June also we get a lot of renewals from Florida market or that coast. So there also, if you have participated, we have seen further hardening, sir.
Yes, that hardening continues. Essentially, that hardening continues, and it is expected to continue for next at least 4 to 6 quarters.
Oh, okay. Okay. Because I see that in the current quarter, that is in the fourth quarter, the entire improvement in the combined ratio to 103 was driven by the overseas business. So just wondering that is largely because of the rate hardening and probably no cat events, big time cat events happening in the quarter, sir.
I would not say that this rate hardening will immediately get reflected in our finances, because whatever we have written on January, the first installment will get booked, between March and May, right? So
okay.
it takes a leg, and then the annual premium gets divided into 4 installments. So
Right.
So it could be a reserve development and reversal of certain losses which we provided on the cat side, and it will be a mixture of everything. But whatever is the hardening, it will take time to get reflected in our finances.
Got it, sir. That's it from my side. Thank you for answering my question.
Yeah.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Vinod Rajamani from HSBC. Please go ahead. Mr. Vinod Rajamani.
Hello. Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are.
Yes.
Yeah. Just had a few questions. Number one, for the current financial year, what is your expectation of the split between the international and the domestic business? Just in terms of what expectations you have, that is one. The second question is in terms of this this push towards getting the combined ratio to 100, which remains a goal for the company. Where is that delta going to come from? Is it going to come because on the fire side, more or less it is appears to be done. Then could it come from the international business? Could it come from health? Just some color on which lines of business could drive this improvement in to 100% kind of combined ratio. These are the two questions I had. Thank you.
Okay. See, the domestic foreign split currently is 64-36, which is fairly close to where, last year we were at 71-29. So there has been a certain movement. It depends. You see, since we took a lot of insight into what the agriculture portfolio domestically was doing, and we decided to prune it. So that has led to a big cut in our domestic book, primarily coming from agriculture book. So that is what has moved. Plus, with the international rates also hardening, we have seen a growth there as well. So this is what has reached that 71-29 to 64-36. There is not going to be much of a huge movement in this, because obviously our ultimate goal is to be 50-50, 50 domestic and 50 foreign, but that's a long-term goal towards which we will progress very steadily. It is not going to be a knee-jerk rush towards one area or one geography and neglecting the others. That is not how GIC operates. It's going to be a slow and steady march. So that is for the split. About the combined of 100. Yes, definitely, as a sustainable operation, we have set for ourselves our goal of getting to a combined of 100 as soon as possible. But as soon as possible doesn't mean overnight, obviously. It's a slow march wherein you continuously keep on pruning your portfolio, you keep on adding better business to your portfolio, make your portfolio much healthier, look at risk selection, look at the pricing models, you run all that through your own systems, see that there's price adequacy, so that there are a lot of things that go in within our own systems to ensure that whatever we are writing is going to yield the result that we expect it to yield. And that is how you continuously churn your portfolio to a certain extent, prune it, and then take it forward. So this is a journey that you have to start, which we have started, and we are moving towards the right direction as the trends indicate. Certainly and very firmly on this path now.
Yeah. So thank you, sir. Just in terms of which segments would you kind of highlight, just in terms of the journey that you have articulated? Which segments are we likely to see this improvement in loss ratios going forward?
See, the four big segments for GIC are, as we have always maintained and said many times, agri, property, motor and health. Now, both motor and health do not really need much of reinsurance, being pretty much retail in their nature. That leaves property and agri. That is where we are making this, making the portfolio better, trying to write much better business and get a growth with a hugely bottom line focused angle.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thanks so much.
Thank you. A reminder to the participants, if you wish to ask a question, please press star then 1 on your touchtone telephone. I would like to remind all participants, if you have a question, please press star then 1 on your touchtone telephone. The next question is from the line of Sahej Mittal from HDFC Securities. Please go ahead.
Hi sir, thanks for taking my question. I couldn't completely understand the tax rate explanation which you earlier gave. So just if you can reiterate that explanation for on higher tax rate during this quarter and this full year.
So yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So actually, this you are aware of the tax laws changed from 1920 regarding 1038 is replaced by 112A, right? So insurance companies like us, we are not allowed to take that particular exemption now, and hence our entire income, including profit on sale of long-term investments or long-term assets, is also taxable. Now, last year was a different calculation because we were having overall loss. This year, as per Section 44, we have to take our taxable income into account from the profit and loss account. Now, to this, as based on that various sections, all additions will happen. Like wherever provisioning is been done for bad and doubtful investments or bad and doubtful debts, all these provisionings which we do it in the profit and loss account is added back. So this is why the net figure of taxable income has gone up. To that, the normal tax rate was applicable to GIC, and this is how the calculation has been done. But definitely, yeah.
The long-term capital gains rate for equity is 10% from what I understand.
Correct. So we are not allowed to take that exemption because we don't say it is capital gains. It is all net profit from the profit and loss account. I think this is what our auditors, consultants, and we have taken it up, of course, for getting this exemption. But on a prudent way, we are providing this particular, adding this income into our taxable income.
Okay. And the other question was on the growth. So for the general insurers per se, in fourth quarter we saw that general insurance grew at about 12.5% in fourth quarter, whereas on a year-over-year basis, while for us there was a degrowth of about 1.5%. So is it that because we are degrowing crop segment, or what is it we really cropping?
No, Mr. Jindal, you see, you have, for us in the domestic portfolio, yes, we pruned our crop portfolio and made it much more robust. But we also grew in some other sectors where we had, the rates were hardening and we were getting a good deal. So you tend to grow. You choose your risks wisely and move forward. So what the general insurers have grown is certainly there, and it will come to us with a lag, of course. But the fact remains that we have de-grown in the domestic but grown in the foreign book. So that has offset because even the rates in the foreign have hardened, and that is giving us a good bit of business coming our way.
Okay. Is it that some of this growth will come with a lag and should be expected on the domestic book?
No, say that again, please.
Is it that, so what you highlighted that, some growth in the domestic book will come with a lag. So is it fair to assume that in FY22, some of it will come with a lag in the first quarter of FY22?
Yes, of course, that lag will be there. What you were talking about 31st March for the domestic market, direct market, will come to us by the second quarter. That lag will definitely be there, but the growth is something that we are seeing. You see, as reinsurers, what is the raw material to feed us? That raw material is risk. And as our entire, the globe becomes more and more risk aware, more and more risks are coming into our books. And that is where we are looking at a growth. You look at the property segment, which is largely driven by the growth coming in from infrastructure. There is so much of infrastructure happening that big ticket growth is going to come into GIC's books also. So growth is something that is happening in the general insurance industry in the country. We have seen a 15 to 18% growth year on year. This year, of course, thanks to COVID, it was down to 12.5. But this is again something that's going to pick up. And as it grows, as the market grows, GIC will also grow. The trick of the entire trade is to pick up your risks in a very prudent manner. The risk selection is what is becoming important for us, as also the risk pricing.
Got it. Thanks. That was all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before we take the next question, a reminder to the participants, if you wish to ask a question, please press star then 1 on your touchtone telephone. The next question is from the line of Manoj Shah from Laxcove Investment. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Can you please comment on the hardening of rates? Are we done with that or still some room to go in the domestic market in the various segments? Like we have increased the rates in the fire and in the motor segment, but I think last year the rate increase was put on hold. I suppose this year also it has not flown in. So can you please comment on the hardening of the rates in the domestic market in the various segments? And second question is, like, as we have seen that in the international segments also, because of lot of claims, the hardening of rates is taking place, and you are commenting that it will take another 4 to 6 quarters before this rate hike cycle is completed. So what happens, like suppose once the rate hike is done and based on your claims ratio, if claims subside, then does this hardening of rates are rolled back, or once it got elevated, it remains there? So just wanted to understand on that.
Sure. It is like, can you take that please and start with the international thing?
Yes, sir. Essentially, this expectation of the hardening to roll out within next 4 to 6 quarters is thanks to the less than expected return on equity by the reinsurance sector in general at a global level during last 4 years, starting from 17, 18, 19, 20. So it will be difficult to comment as to what will happen after this cycle of 4 quarters is over. It will depend on the way the US market, particularly the US hurricane season this year pans out, whether it is below matching or higher than long-term average of the US hurricane season, and the other significant catastrophe prone areas, particularly say Japan. Apart from this expected cat seasons, there are also events happening from say secondary peril and other kind of not very prominent, well-known, publicized events like tornado and winter storm and all those things. So for what will happen after 4 to 6 quarters, it will depend on the way these 6 quarters give the return on equity to the reinsurance sector and how the capital supply develops. Maybe it can be expected to plateau unless there is a force which will maintain the hardening, or if the capacity flows in a much bigger way, there can be softening. But the reinsurance market is a global market. The risk is sliced and diced and is shared by a number of reinsurers. So it is not that after this cycle is over, GIC will get affected. The entire reinsurance sector will move in tandem with some variation across geographies and classes. I hope it helps. Thank you.
Regarding the hardening of the rates in the domestic market, are we done with that, or we expect in the motor segment or in other segments the rate hike will continue?
Mr. Shah, it is, you see, the rate is always commensurate with the capacity available and how you're looking at the market panning out. So even when you talk about hardening of the market, what we did by getting in the IIB rate was essentially a rate correction. You know, in 2007-8 there was a tariff, and there was a discount being offered on the tariff by everybody because the market had become so competitive. So year on year, discounts started happening on the tariff from 40% to 50%, till a stage was reached when the discounts being offered on the tariff rate was 99.5%. You can imagine what rate would be charged, which is where we saw the market on the cusp of an imminent collapse, which is what led us to take this very bold step. I mean, in hindsight, it all looks fine because it's gone well, but that time it was a very bold step that you are dictating a price for a product in a competitive market. But we did that because we owed it to the market, and the market has now stabilized. But do remember that whatever IIB states is just a burn cost. It is the premium versus claims, plain and simple. No bells and whistles to that. So the rates have to still, get better. But at least the market has stabilized, and at least on GIC's end, we don't intend to do anything further than that. It is now for the insurance companies to, realize that price adequacy is must for any survival.
Fine. Also, on the life insurance market, we are seeing that most of the life insurance companies saying that they are increasing the premium rates for the term plan. And as per them, it's basically being the reinsurer are asking for a higher rate. So do we see more increase in the rates on the term plan?
See, Mr. Shah, again, for the life portfolio, we are not a very big player in the market. We are certainly a dominant player, but not a very big player. You have every foreign reinsurance branches also operating in the life space, and the market is very competitive. The market like reinsurance, what comes out is something that attracts every player in the market, and depending on what the proposal is, what is that they are looking at getting reinsured, rates are quoted. And it's an elaborate process. You have a full team here at GIC with actuaries and the full setup who look at the proposal in great detail and then come up with a rate. So those rates are, it is not something that you can give a a very fancy rate and walk all the way to the bank with it. It has to be competitive or you lose out. So it is just, taking into consideration what the risk is all about and pricing it correctly.
Okay. One more question, if you may allow me. The net commission percentage has gone up. Any specific reason for that, for the quarter as well as for the whole year?
The what, Mr. Shah? Sorry, what has gone up?
A net commission percentage on net premium.
No, it is, yes, it has gone up a bit, but there were certain the fixed income treaties that we were writing, which have been discontinued from this year, and therefore those adjustments in the commissions for those treaties is what is being reflected. Otherwise, the commissions normally tend to move in a very fixed band.
Yeah, but in the last call also something was spoken about this fixed cities. But are we done with that, or we may see it still coming up in next 1 or 2 quarters?
No, we are done with that. No fixed margin treaty is being done anymore.
And any comment on the OFS part?
Mr. Shah, my guess is as good as yours. On our part, we have heard nothing from the government.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Jatin Sangwan from Kotak Securities. Please go ahead.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Thank you for the opportunity, sir. My question is related to what are the total number of COVID claims in health and life insurance space for the financial year 2021?
That's a difficult question for me to answer. Really, I can definitely find out and get back to you, but the number exactly would be difficult for the life COVID claims. Unless is Mr. Vikas there? Maybe he would have an idea. No, I don't think he's there in this meeting, but I can definitely come back to you on this.
Okay, and my second question was, are you going to raise tariffs for health?
Sorry, are we going to?
Are you going to raise tariffs for health insurance policies?
No, I'm sorry, I did not get that.
Are you looking to raise rates for the health insurance policies?
Raise for the... No, sir. As I said earlier, health is largely a retail business. It seeks very little or almost nil reinsurance. So whatever is there on GIC's books is largely from the obligatory sessions that we get from the market. So we really have no role to play in the rates of health insurance policies. But I can tell you from my touch of the market is what has happened is that because of the awareness being generated, people now want to buy health insurance and they want to buy a higher limit as well, and they want those policies to have a lot of bells and whistles, having this cover, that cover. So anything that you add on will obviously have a little price associated with it, and that's why it may appear that the health policy rates are going up, but that's how it's a question of truly demand and supply, nothing beyond that.
Okay, that's it from my side. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. A reminder to the participants, if you have a question, please press star then 1. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the last question for today. I would now like to hand the conference back to the management for closing comments. Over to you all, members of the management.
Thank you. Thank you very much. On behalf of CMD GIC and management of GIC, we thank you all for sparing your time to listen to the growth story that GIC is currently writing. And we have continuously kept the investor community informed quarter on quarter about our results, and also have given our guidance as to how the future growth is panning out for GIC, more so for the general insurance and the reinsurance business in India. And for any kind further clarity on these issues and the topics that were discussed, you can feel free to contact us at any point of time. With this, we conclude this meeting with our heartfelt thanks to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of General Insurance Corporation of India, that concludes this conference. Thank you all for joining. You may now disconnect your lines.